Once you have your bar of soap, hopefully your name is written on the outside of it, you're going to carefully open the package, because we're going to store your soap in this package, and then I'm going to put it in a Ziploc bag so that it will stay fresh. If we don't put it in a Ziploc bag, it tends to dry out and becomes more brittle and is much more difficult to carve. So I'm going to carefully slide this out. Now you're going to notice that the name brand of your soap is on here. We're going to use a nail to carve these. The nail is actually 3 tools in one. You have the point of the nail, which is good for drawing things. You have the side of the nail, which is good for smoothing and blending things. And you have the head of the nail, which is good for carving out deep pockets of something. So that's what I'm going to use to carve out the name. And I'm just going to put this aside. You don't need to be doing this just yet. Now I have this big hole in my soap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the side of my nail to kind of make it blend in. You want to go slowly, remember, because this is subtractive sculpture. And once it's gone, it's gone. Now, once I have my soap like this, I want to think about whatever it is that I'm going to make. So let's say, for example, that I want to make a turtle. I want to draw with the tip of my nail and take up as much of the space as I possibly can. I want to cut away as little as possible. Back here for my turtle tail. Make my turtle head up at the top. And put his feet over here. Okay, so there's actually very, very little that I'm going to be getting rid of with my soap. But I do need to, the top of the turtle shell has to be kind of rounded. We'll wait for this to catch up. The top of the turtle shell needs to be sort of rounded. So as I carve this, I'm going to kind of carefully try to round the top of my shell. Those of you who whittle with a knife, this posture will look kind of familiar. This is sort of how you do this. I'm trying to make my turtle shell more rounded. My feet are going to be down here more at the bottom because my shell won't go all the way to the bottom. And as is often the case, I'm going to make this look a little simpler than it is because I have a little more experience with it than you do. But you want to carefully carve things away. Now, if you're making something that needs to start with more of a rectangular shape, you can divide your soap into halves or thirds and only work with a portion of your soap at a time. Notice I do use my finger some to smooth. Notice all of my shavings are consolidated and in one spot. Please don't sniff the soap. It will make you sneeze a lot. Please don't eat the soap. I say these things only because they've happened before. Well, sometimes, you know, if the shoe fits. So you want to kind of whittle down to get what you want to do. So as I work on the shell, I'm going to make the tail kind of go at the bottom. So I'm just trying to make the shell right now more rounded. Then I'll go back in and add the feet as detail because the feet are below the shell. So they won't start until farther down my soap. Does that make sense at all?
No.
Because the feet aren't on the top of the shell, they're below the shell, on the bottom part of my turtle. So when I go to carve away, my feet will be back here. And I'll start to round them. But now I want to save my feet and the other fine details till last. Why do I want to save them till last? Because they're detailed, and they're also more fragile. They're smaller, and we want to make sure if it's more fragile, it's more likely to break. We want to try to make sure that we don't break our soap. But if our soap breaks, what do? You take a step back and you look and you say, okay, what can I make now? Now here is the good news. I am not grading you based on your final product. I am grading you based on your efforts that you're putting forth in this project. Because at least 50% of you, I'm afraid, will end up with this as your final product. This pile of soap. Not because you didn't try, not because you weren't working hard, but because it's really difficult to do. And some of you might have a really good time smushing your soap together to make other types of additive sort of sculpture. Now this won't stay together forever, but you can mush it, especially today, because it'll be really, really soft. And you can mush it, but you can't really carve this because it's not really a solid form. It'll break and flake off. Kind of like when your makeup, powder makeup crumbles and then you try to push it together and then it just keeps crumbling and it's a big hot mess. All right, good luck with your soap carving. Make sure you're covering your workspace. The nails are up here.